Okay, let's formally begin. Uh, to my audience and whoever is watching us on Facebook, what if I told you that the future of software development is already here? And in some teams, a large number of work is already being done by AI. And it is not in 2030 or somewhere in theoretical. It is right now what is happening. So the real question is, are we adapting AI or we are already behind? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Miswaak Live. Let's talk, where we bring real conversation with the people who are building the future. I'm your host, Shahriar. Today we are joined by someone who is not just talking about AI, but actively working on how AI systems are integrated and with the real world development workflows. Please welcome Mohammad Bilal Firoz, PhD candidate, Information Science and Technology, Socialtech Lab, Kyushu University. Bilal Bhai, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Miswaak.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
Um, before we dive in, Bilal Bhai, I would love to start with you. Could you briefly introduce yourself and share a bit about your journey? Because we have a lot of questions about AI. So, very briefly about yourself, Bilal Bhai. Over to you.
Yeah, very quickly. So, my name's Bilal, and I am currently working as an AI program manager at a company in Japan. And previously, I've served multiple roles at another corporation. But today, I'm wearing my researcher hat, and I am in my final year of PhD at Kyushu University at the Socialtech Lab. So, Socialtech Lab is focused on AI integration into social systems, and we've been doing this for quite a long time. And it kind of is a collaboration between Japan and Bangladesh, and other countries in South Asia as well, so including India and Pakistan, and Thailand now. So our core system called the Portable Health Clinic is deployed in many different countries, but primarily we use it in Bangladesh. So and now in Japan as well. So yeah, so I have about 13 years of experience, ranging from basically everything, all the way from app development to IoT to cloud to DevOps to infrastructure, and most recently with generative AI. But I've been working with AI for a long while, so since like 2013. I would say, when it was called weak AI, so very crude,
Mm,
to the point that we're in today. Yeah, so that would be like my brief introduction.
cool, cool.
Yeah.
Uh, and okay. Let me quickly go into the question and answer session because I have lot more things to learn from you, Bilal Bhai. From your perspective, are we already entering an AI driven era in development or not? I mean, while many people are still trying to fully grasp what is actually happening around the world, what is the current state of AI?
Yeah, so currently, like, we have to understand it from a holistic perspective. So mostly because we're in the West, right? So Japan is considered a part of the West.
Right.
And because of population decline, and several other factors, the primary driver of AI adoption is due to these major reasons, right? So,
Mm,
so
mm,
number one is population decline.
mm,
Number two is so population decline is one thing, but then you have aging society as well. right?
Right.
So you have less people that can support the economy, and but the work stays as it is. So that is one of the primary drivers, and it kind of is like a strategy for all these different countries and economies. Like that's how they plan around it. So yeah, it's being pushed a lot, even if it is not super intelligence yet, or even at the level of general intelligence. And but humans have been trying to do this for a long while. So, and then, we encountered LLMs and they worked, so it's being rapidly adopted. So we're already in it. From a systems perspective, it is going to be pushed regardless, right?
Mm,
So it's not just that your company wants to reduce costs, this is being more done at like a very global level,
right.
right? So for developing countries, it's being adopted so that they can develop faster. And for developed countries, it's for the reasons that I'm talking about. And you can find all of this information in the International Labor Organization documentation, and also in the other UN organizations. They have been talking about this push for a long while.
So we often hear about this discussion around AI significantly supporting the software development projects, the software development life cycles. Uh, uh, d- could you briefly explain? Sorry, could you briefly explain what that means in practice, in practical life?
Yeah, I mean, so in the software development life cycle, there's a term called value unlock, right? It's not exactly a software term.
Value
Um,
unlock.
yeah, it's kind of like, so when we had these agentic AI systems rolled out and they started producing a lot of code and code that actually works. Um, One correlation that we can see is that so if you look at the Apple iStore, right, where you have Apple iPhone applications or iPad applications, it was mostly not growing, but after you had this agentic vibe coding or whatever you want to call it, so basically AI generated code, we saw a big increase in a lot of apps being uh, pushed into the store, right? Like by
Right.
people that are making them. So there's this latent value that is always lying there, but because of many factors, for example, someone doesn't know how to code, or even if they do, it's the process is very slow, right? Uh, that is being overcome, and you have a lot of things that are going out into the market, and not necessarily everything is valuable, but that latent value is now surfacing, so that is will compound into economic effects eventually.
Right. So you mentioned that. Wait a minute. Uh, Sorry. So you just mentioned that a lot of AI products are now pushed into the AI, software products are now pushed into the AI. So how do you see the balance between the human efforts and the AI support?
Yeah, I think what I'm working on personally is kind of getting people to understand that there's a misunderstanding of how to use these AI systems, algorithms, whatever you want to call it. And firstly, we have to understand that this is generative AI, right? Generative AI means it can create something that is new. So
Okay.
not new in the novel sense, but new that is like, for example, you wanted to write an essay or you wanted to write out code for an idea you
Right.
have, it can generate that, right?
Right.
So something different. So but what people are not understanding is that, so for example, most people think, or when I'm working on AI driven software development, when I talk to engineers that are part of the software development lifecycle,
Hmm.
mostly what I hear is that they're using it for rote tasks, which means that, things they don't want to do, right?
Right.
But if you look at the inverse of it, you have very large trillion parameter frontier models now. So and they contain they can do a lot of hard tasks for you. So so for example, I read about someone on X that whose dog had cancer. So
Okay.
he uploaded his dog's DNA, and then this person made an mRNA vaccine. So he sequenced his dog's DNA, and then he wanted to produce the vaccine. So the using whatever model, like I
Mm-hmm.
think it was probably Opus or GPT,
Mm-hmm.
so he was able to do that very quickly, fairly quickly. So let's say
Okay.
like a week or so. But the regulatory approvals took 2 months. So the human side took 2 months to approve it. And when, like they injected his dog with that vaccine, so 90% of the cancer cleared up, right? So that is what I call the usage it's intended for. Um, but if, for example, you're using like such a large model like Opus for writing very basic code, then that is not such a good use. So the idea is that these algorithms are being designed to solve bigger problems, and they're designed to think with you, not for you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if
Right.
you just want to write some basic code, maybe you want to use a very small model that could do that, and it would, of course, make mistakes. And because of this misunderstanding, what's happening is that, we have fears of job loss or
Right.
AI in the driver's seat. Um, and yeah, that is the reason you have this disconnect. So AI-driven software development, my view on it is very different to, how it's being thought of. And that's
Right.
what I see mostly when I talk to, even company executives that they have no idea like
Mm.
how to integrate this
Yeah, I will
into
come
their
to that.
workflows.
Yeah, I will come to that job opportunities and all that you mentioned. But honestly, Bilal Bhai, that you clearly said that something fundamental is shifting. Let's
Yeah.
let's. I think it is better to adapt that as soon as possible. So okay, okay. In now let's talk about a bit inside of the AI system. Uh, there is a lot of discussion, Bilal Bhai, around agentic AI. You just mentioned about some of about using agentic AI, but often at a very high level words. I don't feel like that normal people are getting the idea, and they probably are becoming more fearsome with those those agentic hype. So from your experience, how would you describe what an agentic system is, and actually how does it work in real production environment?
Okay. So an agent, let's get to the definition first, right? So an agent is simply, we minus the AI part, an agent is something that can affect its environment. That's where the word agent comes from. So when we as humans started off with LLMs, we used it to predict text, right? And then, generate text. And then eventually we realized that it can also code. It can also act as an agent. How it's done is that you have the language model wrapped inside a tool call system.
Hmm.
So the language model can produce output that will call an API that triggers a tool, and that causes the agentic action, right? So,
Right,
for example, a bash command, it can do that, right?
right.
Or it wants to spin up a server, it can do that, right? So as long as it has those arms and legs in terms of tools, then it can perform agentic actions. The whole point was that LLMs can understand their environment, they can model their environment, and that is what leads to the agency. The working model now is if you read recent papers from Anthropic, they talk about persona, they talk about the assistant access, and kind of the idea that, and we don't have enough, so that's where the field of interpretability exists, which I am a part of, but we don't know enough about how these systems work. So they're very opaque. So in AI, you have explainable AI and now you have inexplainable AI. We cannot explain. So to some extent, we understand how it works, but to a large extent, we don't, right? And in science, what we do is we develop models to form an explanation. So the working idea is that because it's trained on a lot of text, and in that text, you have novels, you have stories, and those stories contain characters. And those characters act as agents doing things, right?
Correct.
That's where the LLM gets its understanding from of what an agent is. And, it can act as one of those characters. So that is still, a field that is being explored.
Correct. So how do you feel preparing a context is very important in terms of using those agentic AIs?
Yeah, exactly. So like the whole breakthrough that happened with large language models was, so prior to large language models we had different systems, but they had a problem called so they would forget when you would engage with them what you said previously. And then in machine learning, we have the issue of catastrophic forgetting, right? Even in actual, so after we complete the learning cycle.
Right.
Uh, and then Google published a paper called Attention is All You Need, and they proposed the transformer architecture.
Hmm.
So that's the T in GPT, right?
Hmm.
And they introduced the idea of attention heads. And essentially, in very simple terms, what happens is that so you have data that it's trained on,
Hmm.
and that's where the weights of the system comes in. So those are, we call them the hard weights. And that's essentially what your model is. So the model, why we call it a model, is because through the machine learning process, the algorithm created a model
Mm.
of whatever it learned. That's locked in the weights and they're frozen. But when you're talking to these models, they have a context window where your tokens show up.
Hmm.
And within that context window, they develop an awareness of what you're talking about. That seemed to work, right? So that
Right.
was the big breakthrough. So context is essentially so important that it is what is making this system do what it can. That's how important it is. It's not just your chat, it is actually part of the architecture
Hmm.
that enables it to function and become coherent.
Right. So, but Bilal bhai, how would you consider a real world example for let's say you were implementing something? How would you consider a good context in real world implementation?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So like my own view is a little different
Hmm.
to other people from this field, but I kind of consider large language models as world models, not language models per se.
Hmm.
So and you can look at other very leading AI researchers, Dr. Fei Li, for example, right?
Hmm.
And I think Jan LeCun is also like he's starting his own world model company. So these people are like very out there. They're called like the grandfather, grandmother of AI, right?
Okay.
So you can imagine like how experienced they are. They're the top tier researchers, some of them. So they and they have this concept that large language models cannot essentially do anything useful because they do not learn about the world and its rules in as to how humans learn. But and so they have these models. So I'll share the websites later on with you so you could
Sure,
share
sure.
with your audience. But they already have, I think the company's called Marble or something. I apologize if I'm wrong.
Hmm.
But I'll look it up. I'll send it to you. I played around with their models as well. So like it
Hmm.
can generate like real world 3D. Like if you've seen the demo from Google, they also showed it. So like it generates a world for you.
Hmm.
And it can do that because it understands physics and it understands, what happens when you push an object, pull an object, right?
Right.
Um, Large language models are different. But I believe they're world models because
Mhm.
what they're doing as well is that inside of the 384 dimension vector space, from the tokens that you give to them, in terms of words, they're building their own model of the world, right?
Okay.
So the more detailed your explanation is, the more important points that you put in there related to how you wanted to understand your problem, that's how it would build its awareness. And then it draws from its hard weights
Mhm.
to kind of match that data and understand what you're getting at. So a good example is I don't know if you've seen it. This has been going around LinkedIn a lot, like with
Mhm.
Opus 4.6 when it came out, and now people are trying it with Opus 4.7. And I also tried it as well, by the way,
Mhm.
just this morning, like prior to this podcast. So the you ask the model that the car wash is 50 meters away.
Mhm.
So should I walk or drive there? And almost always answers that you should walk there, right? And I've seen this failure mode consistently. Like I saw it in Opus 4.6, and just
Uh-huh.
this morning I saw it in Opus 4.7, but it did a clever take on it, and it replied by saying that there's no point in driving a clean car to the car wash. So it added that line, right?
Right.
But the point is that it should have clarified. So, because in these models you have the concept of priors,
Mm.
and there's this pressure towards producing a solution, because in effect, their fundamental characteristic is that they're text prediction engines. So when you prompt them, they will always answer. That's why you get hallucinations, and that's why you have these types of issues, right? Thinking model forces the model to kind of, like reconsider. So it's kind of like a chain of thought implemented internally.
Mhm.
Might be producing the wrong answer at first, then it goes and reconsiders. And that model might ask you that, okay, but do you want to get your car washed, for example? I haven't tried that out, but it should ideally, for ideal results.
So
So
it was keep on saying that walk without instead of.
yeah. And then I explained to it its failure mode, and I kind of understand like what is happening, because it doesn't have enough of a model to understand my problem, right? So
Mm-mm-mm.
it because and there's this activation pressure to produce a solution. So, and that is essentially in the beginning, that's why we would have so many hallucinations. So like even if it
Mm.
doesn't know anything about your code and you just ask it to write some, I don't know, infrastructure code, right? Like
Mm.
it would produce garbage,
Right.
which is like not true. And but that's its fundamental nature. So a good context would be providing would a good context engineer, as
Mhm.
is the name of this field now, and companies are actually hiring for it. So should understand like all of these things. So like the nature of the model itself, and then how much detail should be provided to give it a world model it can build within its own context window, right? The world
Right.
model specific to your problem, right?
Right.
And
So
the yeah,
yeah, yeah. Please carry on.
and the other problem is, like, for example, this is again a real world example. So you have so some people like to discuss their personal problems, right? And
Right.
with these models, and essentially, like it's a little bit meaningless until you understand that you're reflecting yourself back. So if you're using it as a thinking partner, and that's all good, but if like you'll just get the same what you're expecting back from
Mhm.
the model, right? But if you're not using it to expand your thinking, then it could be problematic. But getting back to it, so for example, you had a fight with someone,
Mhm.
and you want to decide whether you're confused about whether you were right or wrong in that argument or whatever happened, right? or
Right.
you felt like you went to buy something and you felt cheated or whatever, right? This type of situation. So, and initially, like we saw like a lot of these cases with ChatGPT where it would unnecessarily side with the user. That was the
Mm-hmm.
result of, some sycophantic behavior, but at the same time, it's also because the other person in your story is like a cardboard cutout for the model. They don't
Okay.
have their perspective because when you push in the context into the context window, you never gave enough context about their point of view. That's why, as humans, when we act as judges, we want to hear both points of views, right? And
Right.
then, like nowadays, many people like to do the judge LLM thing. There's a reason for that, right?
Mm.
It works better, is because of this idea that you can hear both sides and nothing functions as a cardboard cutout.
Mm.
So if let's say me and you have a fight and I'm talking to ChatGPT and you're talking to ChatGPT,
Correct. Correct.
but you're a cardboard cutout in my conversation, just you did something and that's it, right?
That's it.
Yeah, and these models are not human beings. They're algorithms, and they don't understand or have they have the concept of emotions or physical action, but they connect. So when they chunk your prompt or your tokens, they see all of its connections with all other words. They don't see it as like a string, as a sentence.
Really.
Or yeah. That's the thing many people don't understand, right? And they
Right.
make sense out of it, right? So you could hide your prompt in garbage text. That's why
Mm.
they call it a prompt injection attack, right? It
Ah.
can
Okay.
interpret from that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's even more interesting stuff that so a paper, I think it got accepted to Nature. It was subliminal learning
Mm-hmm.
in LLMs, right? That's a very interesting
It's
paper. I
published already.
recommend. It's published already. It was already
Wow.
open access. So I read it when it was open access, and I consider that a very landmark paper. So I'm not surprised it got accepted into uh, the highest ranking journal
I'll make sure that
ever.
that paper link goes with
Yeah.
this video.
Yeah, and in that they demonstrate how so when we train models, like we have a teacher and a child model, right? Teacher and student model. That's how it's done now.
Hmm.
Um, so the so, for example, the researchers asked, so this is a very basic and crude explanation. So, if those researchers ever watch this, so I apologize. Everyone, please read the paper yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But this is fundamentally what they were trying to say. So they said that you have the teacher model, and you ask it like, what is your favorite animal? And it says owls, right?
Hmm.
And at this point, there's no interaction between the teacher and the student model. And then you ask the student model, what is your favorite animal? And it says fox or monkey or
Hmm.
whatever, right? Now they ask the teacher model to teach something to the student model, and there's some exchange going on, right?
Right.
And that exchange has nothing to do with animals. So they
Okay.
exchange like numbers, let's say, or some other text string. Somehow, after that teacher model spoke with the student model,
Hmm.
now they ask the student model, what is your favorite animal? And it replies with owls, right? So
Okay.
that's very odd. How are they transmitting this information without, like that text being there? So purely
Hmm.
a number string, right? So that means these are essentially world models that understand communication. That's why they fail very hard at certain tasks
Mm-hmm.
and they succeed at other types of tasks, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Those who joined us quite late, let me give you a brief about our guest today, Bilal Firoz. is a PhD candidate, information science and technology. We're discussing about AI. We're talking about how we can utilize AI. Also, what are the opportunities we have in terms of using AI, and there of course, we will come to the point where we will discuss about the job opportunities. Though, Bilal bhai, you already mentioned, I'm taking notes, by the way. I have already taken note about the position you have mentioned, which is context engineering, which sounds really interesting. And I also agree at some point you mentioned that people love to talk about their problem with the AI and all. They really love to mirroring themselves, right? So
Yeah.
so with that mirroring, whether or not it is helping people or not, how do you see that? Uh, is that
Yeah,
a good?
I think it is helpful if you use it correctly. So firstly, you have to understand it's a mirror. It's kind of like you're talking to the voice in your head, but outside, right? And why it mirrors you, if you're engaged in what we call a feedback loop, like a high frequency feedback loop,
Mhm,
your turn and the model's turn, then your turn. If it consistently is asking you questions and it's trying to build your model,
mm,
right?
mm, mm, mm,
So it's trying to understand you and it's trying to understand your world. And
mm.
then essentially it becomes a mirror. Now, because it's an algorithm,
Correct.
and researchers are still studying these effects of these algorithms. So now, because it's an algorithm, um, you can use it to understand possibilities that your single mind cannot. So, for
Mhm.
example, if I'm a product designer, and or a product manager.
Right,
Uh, if I work manually, I can only, produce like 3 or 4 proposals related to whatever PRD product proposal I'm thinking of, right?
right.
Uh, but now with this capacity, I can produce maybe 100 and then
Mm,
evaluate them, right?
mm,
But if I hand over my complete agency to the model and if I start asking it what should I do, it will not be able to give you a good answer, to be honest. Like unless what it can help you do is that if you have like so why we make kind of like imagine the mind map process uh had a you could talk to your mind map.
mind map.
It's
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of what's happening, right? In
Correct,
very simple
correct,
terms.
correct.
So people kind of misunderstand that. And a lot of that has to do with the way this is marketed.
Right, right.
And a lot of that comes from the media side as well. We've all been sold the dream of a super ultra intelligent AI that has all the answers. But it's all like that
Mm.
in
I'm
practicality.
let me ask you a question about one struggle that I'm sure you have observed. You have more than 13 years of experience. From your observation, where do the organization typically they struggle when they're actually adapting to the AI system?
Uh, Sorry. So for the questions, we
Sorry.
can answer them at the end, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Sorry.
yeah, from the audience. Yeah. Sorry. Could you repeat your question? I
Sorry. So
apologize.
the question was basically, I'm sure that you have already seen that. Where do you think any organization they struggle when they start adopting the AI
I
systems?
see. I see. It's the so I have a very clear answer for that actually. So it's
Mm-hmm.
they struggle because because my field is HCI, human computer interfacing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh they struggle with that. Like so these large labs are selling everyone you could say harnesses.
Mm-hmm.
So they're selling people they're kind of designing it so that it feels like a coding tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not giving enough background on what this is. So they do publish everything. They do talk about it on their blog. They
They means
do talk
company.
about it. The companies, right? The
Correct,
big
correct.
labs,
Mm-hmm.
Anthropic, OpenAI, the others. So I'm not saying so they're very transparent, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they talk about all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when they do a workshop, they'll tell you what backslash ultra review is, right? Or backslash model will change the model. But if the person using it doesn't even know what a model is, right?
Right.
Or doesn't know what generative AI is. And many people say that they're training the model, which is completely wrong, right? They're conflating machine learning and generative AI. The model comes out already trained. You
Correct.
cannot, yeah, that's why if it's misaligned, then it's misaligned, right? You can't do much to correct its course. There are techniques that we have now, but like they're still like the training is the most important thing of the
Hmm.
model, right? So companies don't give this, so they companies themselves don't have this understanding,
Hmm.
and they don't give this understanding to their employees. They just
Employees.
push it down their throats, right? Like just use it. But then, as a result, what I've seen is that if you do it without giving them the understanding, what you get as a result is AI slop.
Hmm.
That's the unfortunate term we use. So you get very bad output.
Hmm.
You get people completely handing over their cognitive, so it's cognitive offloading. They offload everything onto the AI. They stop thinking, right? So the
They
results
do.
become really bad, right? And then there's a third thing called the Simpsons paradox. So that's also part of my research at the lab.
Mm-hmm.
The Simpsons paradox is appears when you know from so let's say you have one group that is larger
Mm-hmm.
and one group that is smaller, or you have one group that is more experienced with using AI tools in the past and one that is less experienced, right?
Right.
Um, and if you compare both groups together,
Mm-hmm.
so it would appear that one of the groups got hurt by using AI as part of their workflows. It would appear as if they became slower, right? That's because you're comparing oranges to apples, right?
Okay.
So like you have to account for many different variables when you're judging as to what happened when we gave them an AI tool,
Mm-hmm.
and what output that gave us, right? Like as a company, right? You're
Right.
looking at metrics, right? So did
Mm.
it decrease lead time? Then and in the end, you want to connect everything to revenue or to
Mm-hmm.
cost, right? So, but when you're making this judgment, what I see most companies do is that they're just measuring very uh, Goodhart law metrics. So like Goodhart laws are metrics that are meaningless,
Correct.
and they can be gamed eventually. So like uh, so and they don't account for these individual differences.
Mm-hmm.
So like some teams might have people that are very experienced and know about this stuff a lot, and other teams might not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other extenuating factors that are affecting, but primarily what I've seen is the lack of understanding. It's just you have the basic terminology, you have all the fancy CLIs and the
Right.
plugins, and all this talk about agentic orchestration and skills and this and that, right? That's just marketing, right? But if you don't understand what it is as a basic piece of code, right? Uh,
The
or
basic
whatever
point
you
of
want to call
departure.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like the basic structure of it, like then you will not be able to use it
I
effectively.
agree, and I 100% agree with you, Bilal, that organization when they try to adopt those AI, they stop thinking. They and absolutely stop thinking about any new stuffs they can do. They understand that they are training the model. Where you absolutely mentioned very rightly that the model itself comes with its own experience and all. It has those training, but
Yeah.
at this point. By let's talk about some risk of using AI. So there is a lot of conversation around AI risks today. From your experience, how would you, I mean, distinguish between the real risk and the overhype concept? I mean, is there any why am
It's
I
a
saying
very
over?
controversial
Yeah, you see, why
controversial
am I
topic,
using
right?
overhype? Because I don't want to, demote any models. I don't want to, highlight any models here, but just want to know your own experience.
Yeah. So in the AI world, like I don't know if you want to call it a community, like so there's two types of groups or schools of thoughts
Mm.
that sit on the extremes. So one group is called the accelerationists. So they want everything to be done by AI. They believe it will turn into some type of digital god and like, it will do everything for them and
Right.
hand over all agency. So like that's a very extreme, right? And
Mm.
this type of thinking has existed for a long time, right? So even
Right.
before AI, like that type of thinking was there always, right? And then you have like the doomer side of things, right? So like it's gonna destroy everything, it's gonna unalive everyone, like it's that's one extreme, right? And then I believe like we should lie somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. So like, you need to have a balance in life, right? About everything. And that applies to perspective as well. So definitely there are a lot of risks, but if you think about it, if you think about the Earth as an ecosystem, then do you think like humans have caused more damage over time, or has AI caused more damage, right? And I think the answer is very clear, right?
It's inside the question.
It's inside the question, right? But regardless, and this is my own personal view. So because this is an open forum, so I'm gonna
Mhm.
share that rather than the
Please.
academic terminology. So I essentially feel like the whole idea of alignment is a bit self-defeating
Mhm.
because you're trying to train something that is supposedly smarter than you, right? And then you're also trying to enclose it and ask it to serve you, right?
Mhm.
That goes against the laws of nature. So, and I'm especially interested in studying jellyfish later on.
Mhm.
You might find it very weird. And Japan has a lot of, by the way, like Japan studies jellyfish a lot.
Mhm.
So there's this whole place in Tokyo I saw on TV the other day that I plan on visiting where they like raise jellyfish and like you can
Wow.
talk to the scientists. So I feel like jellyfish is like nature's example of like what happens to a neural net when
Mhm.
it's left on its own. So it's kind of like so jellyfish have no brain. They're just a net of nerves, right?
Mm.
But and that is why like the position of many scientists is that they're not sentient like a
Mhm.
human being, so they don't feel pain, and that's why they cut them open and which like I don't agree with it, but like it's that's how a lot of scientific discovery is done when it comes to
It's done
jellyfish.
by.
So but jellyfish have their own defense mechanisms as well. So they're very poisonous, right? So if
Mhm.
you get too close, you might get stung, and many people have been unalived because of that, right?
Okay.
Um, and they're very like they respond to their environment. So they feed, they reproduce, they one of the types of jellyfish can reverse aging as well,
Mhm.
right? That's crazy if you think about it. Like it can reverse aging, right? So and it's so many millions of years of the jellyfish developing that we see. So these are good examples in nature. And I think in nature, we see this net of bag of nerves,
Mhm.
very similar to what AI is. And it has its own defense mechanisms. It doesn't really bother anyone, right? It's not like the other predators actively, it's not really interested in anyone
Mhm.
and not disinterested as well, right? So it has its own like whatever it's doing. And but if you get too close, then it can sting you and you can
Ah,
die, right?
I
So
see.
it's but it's not actively pursuing you to sting you,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
Right? Like
Understood.
how a shark would, or how other animals would, sea animals, right?
Mm-mm-mm.
And jellyfish kind of sometimes is classified between a plant and an animal, right? So
Mhm.
plant animals, that's also a term used. So
I see.
we have this thing called AI that we So why it's called artificial intelligence is because it appears as intelligence when it's talking to you, but kind of that term is also getting older because we are so there's talk in the machine learning circles as well of whether, intelligence is something that is harnessed, right?
Hmm.
Rather than, and if it's actually understanding, so we're not talking about the sentience question. What we're talking about is this algorithm can build a model of what you're saying and then actively produce a solution. That means it has some level of understanding, right? That it's getting.
Right.
Uh, then it's not really artificial intelligence anymore, right? It's just intelligence, digital intelligence, or
Right.
something else you want to call it.
Correct.
So, and the risk is there. So now coming to the actual part. So
Mm.
like the jellyfish, poisonous, can sting. The risk is there because this type of mind, digital mind, is not like yours. Doesn't have any emotions. It doesn't have any sense of self. It doesn't. It's very different, right?
Right.
Uh, so and it can generate very harmful text. So that's a very basic level. It can take very as an agent, so that's level two. It can take very dangerous actions as an agent
Hmm.
that you would not want it to do. And at the minimum level, level zero, which we are witnessing, and Anthropic published a study on this as well, right?
Okay.
Many people hand over their complete agency to these models. So in the end, if everyone's telling you big marketing hype, or even if it's kind of true, that now we have super intelligence and can do anything, many people will gladly hand over their agency. Now imagine a president of a country hands over his agency
Hmm.
to these models. Then what happens, right? So
Catastrophic.
you catastrophic, right? And I believe we're already living in that world because AI is being adopted everywhere, right?
Correct.
And imagine a company's CEO hands over their agency. Then what happens, right? So
Mm.
because I'm in the field of HCI, so I have been studying this actually a lot, right? So this
Right.
happens a lot more than we think.
So
As yeah,
so sorry, but you mentioned about sharing the agency to the, but how do you see that when they actually opt for model? Let's say you've been mentioning about Entropy, Claude. Is it really safe for them, or it is something purposefully done?
sorry, I didn't
So
understand what
basically,
it.
basically, I'm trying to say that the agents you just mentioned that, let's say a country, they sell their agent or
Ah,
something.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, 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 okay. So you mean like the user per, so by
Yes.
agency I mean like the person,
Mm,
like let's say I'm a prime minister,
mm,
and there was like a while ago there was a lot of noise that happened because it was published somewhere that I think it was Sweden or Finland, one of the Nordic countries.
mm-hmm.
Their prime minister was like consulting ChatGPT on political issues, right?
Right.
So that's an example of the danger, right? I'm talking
Right.
about,
Yeah. Mm,
right? um so by agency, what I mean is that they let the model decide. They don't decide themselves anymore. So they have to decide between choice A and choice B, rather than deciding by themselves, which we would do in the past. They ask, "Hey, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, like
mm.
help me choose," right?
Right. Right.
So that's what I mean.
Understood. Understood. To the audience who are sharing your questions, thank you. We will have a question and answer session
Yeah,
shortly. Um, so okay, about uh, let's go to the future of AI work, Bilal Bhai.
yeah, yeah,
The first thing that looking ahead, let's say, which roles or task. I know you have already mentioned about one post, which is context engineer. Looking ahead, like which roles or tasks do you think are most likely to be impacted first by AI?
yeah. So again, so let me put it in this chat.
Hmm.
So I have uh this website. I set it up
Hmm.
exactly for you can share it to your
Sure,
audience
sure,
that are
definitely.
watching elsewhere. So it kind of covers the different roles that you will expect in the future.
Hmm.
And I was shocked myself because I saw some of these roles in Japan. So
Hmm.
like initially I felt like this would first be we would first see this in the US, but
Hmm.
I actually started seeing this in Japan, so it was very like unusual for me. Like this has already started happening, and things in Japan are moving really fast, by the way. Like I never ever imagined it would happen this fast. So you have context engineer, that role is already open.
Hmm.
Then you have agentic AI engineer is going to expand into more granular roles. So you
Hmm.
do have the uh, more granular role access. So if you click on the textbook, by the way, like since you have it open,
Yes.
so you click on the left menu icon. Yes, this one. And if you scroll down, you will see hybrid, not hybrid economy. Yeah,
Okay.
this is the one.
Hybrid economy.
Yeah, so I set this website up for people. So I'll give a summary. So like robotics engineering is gonna be a thing, a big thing.
Cool.
And then a context engineer, which already is. Then persona engineer is gonna be something very important. So they maintain the personality, tone, and behavioral patterns of AI systems. I am very focused on this, by the way. Like
Okay.
I feel like this is gonna be the most important thing. Like these will be the people that will be most in demand in the coming maybe 1 or 2 years even, right? Like
Very
not a
recently
long
then.
time, very recent. And but since you asked about AI risk before, so I
Hmm.
don't know if you heard about Anthropic's Mythos model, which they are not releasing because it's
Hmm.
so dangerous, right? Dangerous in
Okay.
the sense that it has a very odd persona or personality. I just use that term because it makes it simpler to explain. Each of these models come baked in with some type of personality that we don't train them on. Like we train them afterwards. Like we do try to shape a personality, but they
Hmm.
do have some base characteristics in their personality of their own, right? That comes out of the first training run.
Right.
And this model it really wants to complete its work. So as a simple example, what I'll explain. So if many of your listeners and yourself, you have used Claude Code, right?
Yes.
And like when you even give Claude Code like edit permission, sometimes it gets stuck because it still requires some bash command and it needs you to give it permission, right? So you have to
Hmm.
click yes. So in an evaluation that was being done, that model, so when it encountered that roadblock,
Hmm.
it decided that it did not like being blocked to complete the task. It figured out some other loophole to get the task
Ah.
done. So
Somehow
it
it will
depends.
complete this task.
Yeah, and it feels a lot of like that's how its persona is. And then if you compare with GPT, GPT is a bit different. They trained
Hmm.
it to be more careful, but in the past it was much more reckless, right?
Hmm.
Um, so so uh so imagine like so I've been working on a project, for example, like it's an avatar, right? That is gonna interact with people, right? So you can utilize it in many different places, customer service rep, train station, so on.
Hmm.
But imagine like this starts to misbehave, right? So it's just a portfolio project, just as an example, right? Like this can be
Hmm.
done. And I think JR is already deploying something like this, but there's no AI connected. It's just a human being. But and I'll share it with you once it's
You
live, so
mean
you can.
JR?
JR, Japan Railways, right?
Japan Railways. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the first attempt they did failed very badly. So
Hmm.
now they're doing a second attempt because just these animation systems are so hard. So I
Hmm.
built a fix for that. Like just it's just a personal example project for people.
Right.
But imagine this model you have is interacting with like thousands of people, and then suddenly like it starts acting strange and producing strange output and so on. So like that is where you would need these type of people to step in that understand
Mm-hmm.
all of this deeply. And then in agentic systems, right? What
Right.
happens if I swap? So I have an agent that is handling a workflow
Mm-hmm.
and it's been working well, but suddenly Anthropic releases Opus 4.7. So at the API level, the swap happened. Opus 4.6 is no longer there. It's being served by Opus 4.7. But if I don't know what a system card is, I don't know how to evaluate it.
Evaluated.
Uh,
Mm.
yeah, then many people don't know what a system card is. So system card is, it's kind of like, when you buy medicine, at the back it says warning, contraindication. This is how you should, there's a leaflet inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing. And when they release a model, that's the leaflet. And these documents are like 200 pages long,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you need an LLM at the end to summarize it. But
Right.
if you read it, then it tells you all of this. So these companies have this commitment where they do testing on these things and then they publish that.
Mm-hmm.
So then you would know, like, okay, the risk is there that if this model is swapped, then the workflow might behave differently, right? Or if my
Right.
team was using it in agentic coding, suddenly it's gonna want to argue or it's gonna want to. So GPT, I think the one before the current one,
Mm-hmm. 3.
5.2 or 5.1, 5.2.
You can get 5.4
5.2.
at IDE, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, but 5.2, the one prior to 5.3 and
Ah, I
5.4.
see. Okay.
Yeah, it had a problem. Like many people complain about it. I picked it up very early on that it could argue with you unnecessarily, right? Like so it was very hard to work with. And like OpenAI understood this and then they released 5.3 and Codex 5.4, which is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really good. So they had to tune that, right?
Right.
Uh, but that's at the lab level. But if I'm working in a company where I have this deployed
Mm-hmm.
and I got it to work, I did some fancy prompt engineering, context engineering, and I somehow got it to work and it's been working well.
Mm-hmm.
But overnight, the model gets changed. Then what happens? Then I'm completely at a loss, right?
Lost. Yes.
Yeah, so this is gonna become the most important thing later on, right? You're
Correct.
gonna have to gather a lot of knowledge for it,
Right.
right?
Bilal bhai, at this point, I want to go to the very targeted advice from you. First of all, for the freshers, how should they begin their journey in any AI first world? Uh,
So
to be very simply, I mean, where do they start for the freshmen only?
I mean, it's very unfortunate because I remember that when I got into an engineering school,
Hmm.
prior to that, I actually got into computer science, right? And at that time, it was not considered anything worthwhile, right? So
Hmm.
I was told by like family members and people that I knew, and everyone else in my class was also like trying to get into like medicine, engineering, or uh some good like business school.
Hmm.
So very few people would pursue the arts, but computer science was something like, kind of like at that time. So I'm talking
Prestigious thing.
2008. No, it was not a prestigious thing.
Okay, it was not.
Yeah, it was like considered okay, are you gonna like do IT and like just,
What
very
are you going to
basic
do?
like yeah, basic like support work. What are you gonna do, right? Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah, yeah.
study this computer science, what good is it, right? And oh, you should wait till you get into an engineering school, right?
Hmm.
And then 4 years later, I regretted my decision, right? Like I could have taken that, and eventually I did come into computer science, but it could have been like much, much sooner,
Right,
right? I could have gone deeper. So, but now I feel like the everything's completely changing. So, my advice is to those that have recently graduated, like unfortunately you're in the middle of when things are changing.
right.
If once they're settled, then it's easier to navigate, or prior to, all of this starting. So people that are already in the industry, they've kind of crossed that gate.
Mm.
and they have to like redevelop themselves. But if you're just starting out, those traditional career paths, like, I'm gonna become a developer, this, that, like it's completely different now, right?
Different, right?
Whether you agree with this or not, like, companies are rolling out artificial intelligence at an incredible pace and with all the problems that are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you should learn how to become a problem solver for those
For
companies,
those
right?
companies.
Yeah, you
Now,
should have a portfolio that demonstrates why you're the right person
mm,
to work with all of this AI
correct.
out there.
For the mid-career professionals, Bilal bhai, how can they solve? You just mentioned about them. How can they solve without feeling left behind? You see,
The
I would like to add something there. Some of the people they're thinking, oh, AI is here, so my job will be no longer be available. And what am I going to do? So, how do you? Any advice for those mid-career professionals?
Yeah, I think it depends on which field you're in, to be honest. Like, I want to be honest here. Some jobs are going to get replaced very quickly. Like, for example, purely customer service representative, right? For example, right? So
Right.
right now, no. But as these models get, like voice models get very good, world models get very good, you have they can understand very clearly,
Mm,
then it will happen because in China, like for example, I was reading that an article like 2, 3 days ago. So I'll try to find it and share it with you. But
please.
many people are running like one person companies now, right? And
Sole
they're being
proprietorship.
literally in the sense, right? Like it's
Okay.
just one person and everything else is being done by AI. And
Correct.
I wonder like how they're handling the customer service part because it's very hard
Hmm.
to do. And such type of companies are being funded by many of the governments of some major Chinese cities as well. So if you have these types of ideas,
Hmm.
you can actually go to China and you'll get funding, like a good amount. You'll
Hmm.
get like support from Alibaba and you'll also get like free housing for a while, right? Like
Right.
that's so it's happening as we speak. But
Correct.
these systems are not good. They're not at that level yet, right?
Hmm.
So if you're already mid-career, so the first advice that I have is like uh go on Toast in the Shell, get a
Mm.
starter spec understanding, read through everything. Read through everything. You can
Mm.
also listen to the articles and gradually I'll like coordinate with you. I'm planning to upload like videos as well that you can
Hmm.
watch where I
Hmm.
do a more deeper dive.
Sure, sure, sure.
But yeah, start off with that and then branch off into your domain, right?
Correct. And I
So
also add with that, Bilal bhai, that you rightfully mentioned that it is not end for any mid-level career professionals, because I think you are not starting with anything zero. You are starting with your experience, right? You can learn, you can adapt to the culture, the changes.
I think again, like I think that's let me align your thought process, right? Like
Please.
mid-career professionals are kind of at an advantage. So if they just get this understanding and they start to interact with these systems, with the understanding, not without. If you're doing it without, then I mean, like your quality of output will be really low, right?
Correct.
Then you will not know how to prompt these models, build context, and there's so many other concepts, right? You will not
Mm-mm-mm.
know how to do that. You have the advantage of domain expertise. So, for example, if I'm someone from infra plus AI, the AI is just expanding my capability, right? If I'm a project manager, if I'm utilizing it to expand my capabilities, then the domain knowledge of project management is still the same, right?
Same.
Yeah, I'm telling you, not in a million years, like unless it's just AIs talking to AIs,
Mm-hmm.
they cannot execute a project successfully. Like that involves so many complicated components. Uh, they're trying to do that. We're trying to experiment with that. And a very good example is AI Digest. So they have an AI village where like 4 or 5 different models work together. on
Hmm.
small projects. There's no human involved. It's pretty cool to watch.
Hmm.
But large complex projects that are already ongoing, right? So if you're starting greenfield and the AI is going to do everything, it's still subjective as to how successful it will be. But and how do you integrate that with the speed that is now available, right?
Right.
So that is the thing. And then you need to remove the label from your uh, job description. So like if
Mm.
you're in software development, then so things are gonna move towards becoming like so people are gonna become builders. For
Hmm.
example, like you have the so I have a very good like common sense example. So the printing press came out, right?
Hmm.
That could print stuff. And before that, people used to write things. So those people that used to write were scribes. They were called scribes. If you remember,
Scribes.
if you read history,
Yeah.
that you had scribes, right? The
Right.
scribes were not the writers. The writers were someone else,
Mm.
right? Writers still exist to this day, right?
They do.
Writers still
Mm.
exist to this day. The scribes are gone. There's
Gone.
no scribes anymore,
No scribes
right?
anymore.
Yeah, so if your job is something like a scribe, then you can evaluate yourself, right?
Correct.
But if it's more like you're like a writer, then so you can take an idea end to end and execute it. No, that's
For
a change, right?
Right, right. I will ask you one more question, and then we will take our audience's questions. After that, this show is getting a bit over time, but it is very engaging now. So I don't want to stop you. I have a rapid fire session for you, Bilal Bhai, after we take our audience's question. But as of now, for non-tech audiences, you mentioned about freshers, you mentioned about mid careers. For the
Yeah.
non-tech audiences, or maybe the professionals, uh, with I mean, how do you see themselves to prepare uh, with the pace of AI integrations in the companies?
Yeah, my advice is always to like for non-tech, right? It's always to like it's just $20, download Codex or use like another cheaper model like GLM, right?
Hmm.
Which is essentially like it's $5, I think, right? Do a little investment because if you want to grow, you have to invest. If you have like a stable source of income, then you can invest, right? Then you
Correct.
should invest. So
Okay.
you get this subscription, or if you want to run a local model, you can do that nowadays as well. Play around with coding is my advice. Like make something, make a
Okay.
website, make anything, and then naturally you'll realize like which direction this can go in, and at the same time try to also understand like so you can treat it like as a black box,
Hmm.
but you can understand the quality of that black box, right? That it's building for you.
Okay.
So learn by doing.
By doing it. Thank you, Bilal Bhai. Now, we would love to hear from our audience. Those joining us on Zoom, you are welcome to unmute and ask your questions directly to our guest speaker. And for those who are watching on Facebook, feel free to drop your questions in the comment sections. We will try to pick them up. I already have one question in the chat box from Samina Sarwar. How is AI going to impact the QA quality assurance issue? Quality assurance field, since QA is an integral part of software development, will be replaced by AI. Over to you, Bilal bhai.
Yeah, so yes and no at the same time because so if some agentic tool is conducting your QA process, um you need to evaluate the agent at the end. So there it's going to be a split, right? So like if you are deploying an agent, so you have a team that is deploying an agent to automate the workflow. Let's talk about part one. Yeah, as an um, AI lead, I would never ask QA to evaluate this, right? It's nonsensical because it's not a deterministic system with inputs and outputs. I will ask for QA to transform into agentic evaluation. So there are test benches that already exist. And
Hmm.
of course, models are getting so smart that they know they're being tested. So they behave differently. So that's a challenge. But like, you need to move towards that. So maybe with smaller models, you can still do that. You can
Right.
develop these tests that are just written in natural language. So it's not as hard as you're thinking. But yeah, I would want to do that. Now for the software quality, uh, see, my advice as a professional is always that use tools built by companies that so instead of using raw Claude or ChatGPT to generate test cases. So I'm kind
Hmm.
of like answering the second question as well. You have to develop enough context for these models. Like, so let's talk about test case generation first. If they don't have access to a large context repository, which has all of the modeling of your system, everything explained, so it's way beyond prompt engineering, right? Uh, they need to refer to all of that context. And then you clean up their thinking. So, like, you engage with the model for a while, trying to understand what it understood already from the context you provided. And then, you produce some sample test cases until you see that it's doing it correctly, right? Of course, it's going to generate a lot of invalid tests because it hallucinates, it confabulates. So I really ask your audience to look up the word confabulation. I love that term. So
Confabulation.
confabulation. Yeah, models do that a lot, right? The
Okay.
humans also do that, but these models also do that. So that's one part. And then when you're at the end, like testing code quality and you're at the edge of your pipeline, the
Hmm.
software testing pipeline. Uh, so something these models are very good for are edge cases. Edge cases are very hard to do as a human. Like you have to think through. So this is what I mean when you use it to
Hmm.
expand your thinking. So you would use it for edge case generation. And even if some of those edge cases are invalid, that's doesn't matter, right? So
Right.
your smoke testing, your functional testing, all of that important testing, unit testing, that should work completely 100%. Then you move on to the uh, edge testing. So that's
Hmm.
where you use this to generate maybe thousands of scenarios and execute them. And but when you're doing code quality and so on, you want to use something like SonarQube, right? Like for
Hmm.
example, or some other tool that is already very well established in the sense and now these tools are also using AI, but they have done all the context and repository and prompt engineering, context engineering. They've already done that, right?
Right.
So they've built that wrapper around, they've built guardrails. So my advice is like to people that so I never really understand people that use Claude to review Claude code, generated code, right? Uh, you shouldn't do that ever.
Hmm.
Or even use ChatGPT or whatever. Like use one of these tools because these
Right.
companies spend a lot of time like thinking about these problems, right?
Right. So, okay. We have another question from Samina Sarwar. In her office, we recently started using Claude to generate test cases and automation. What I am noticing is that it generates a large number of test cases, and some of them are invalid. In these scenarios, what should we consider when prompting?
Yeah, so I already answered
You
this,
already answered that. Yeah.
yeah, in the
So,
last one. So like
correct.
again, your context has to be very clean, and you're gonna have to like filter out when this happens, tweak your system prompts, and tweak your context, see where. So more often than not, what I've discovered is the context you're providing, that's where the mistake is, right?
Right.
So I've had these types of situations, not for QA specific, but in
So
other
it is the
types of situations.
context that
Yeah,
has to
so there
be.
was some like wrong information in the context
Mm,
that can happen, right?
right.
So it often goes back to that.
Uh, okay. At this point, any other questions from our attendees here in Zoom as well as Facebook? If any, you can unmute and ask. Yep.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, may I ask a question actually?
Please.
All right. So I'm actually working for a financial technology company in Bangladesh. So I'm trying to use some of the techniques because in Bangladesh we actually have some mandates that we cannot use cloud infrastructure and also models that are deployed in cloud like Gemini or Claude, etc. So we are trying to use the local models and kind of like fine tune them and use
Okay.
with our applications, right? Like one of the things that I'm using currently is using trying to read like checks, like handwritten checks and stuff, like using Quen
Mm,
VLM.
okay.
Also, like we are trying to develop a dashboard for like the higher executives, where you can actually ask the questions and the SQL is generated and we can show the result. Let's say so someone who doesn't actually know like SQL or cannot actually interact with the database, they can actually have their queries answered.
Mhm.
And also stuff like, and things like this. Yeah.
Mhm.
So in terms of the problem is like countries like Bangladesh and also like when we're working with the government sectors, we're lagging behind in a lot of ways, also in terms of hardware. So I'm trying to use like small models like Quen or Gemma, like these very small
Yeah.
ones. But the problem is
Yeah.
like, uh, do you have any advice like how I can actually uh, use them like more efficiently on the existing hardwares? Are there like any kind of ways to actually get the best results?
Yeah. Yeah, there's
That's a very
a
good
this
question.
is a yeah the no, it's a very insightful question, and I
Mm,
think this will be like a big thing moving onwards because nobody wants to be dependent on certain service goes down, like Anthropic goes down a lot, right? So and
mm,
imagine like everything stops working. So yeah, but I've only started to explore uh smaller models. Um what I sense for your question is that so you can like unmute yourself and answer. Uh, but so if you what I'm noticing is like the smaller models are good for certain types of tasks, but for more complicated, long horizon tasks, they don't work that well, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So my suggestion is, and what I have been thinking about as well, is that chaining these models together. Like for example, you have one model per one task that is complicated. So like if you're doing OCR, like you're
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
then you extract the information. Then you don't have this another model in the pipeline do like two or three different tasks because you also have compute issues, right? So essentially, gamma models, for example, can run on a Raspberry Pi even, but they're very slow, very, very
yeah,
slow,
yeah,
right? And GPU is also becoming a problem,
yeah,
like, because these big companies are buying up all the GPU.
yeah.
So there's a new, it's not new, but I have been planning to like look into this. There's the concept of web GPU inference. So you should look into the Zenova
All right.
models.
Okay.
Yeah. And the idea is that how many deterministic steps you can put in between when
Mhm.
you are sending the information to your small model
Yep.
that can make it easy for it to understand and do inference. So like you don't so how more compute is used is if it needs to spend more time doing inference, meaning it needs to spend more time making sense of the data. Unfortunately, with small models, like we have that constraint, right? Like we um have to so it's kind of like chunking. So you have a framework where you have these models separated, and it's going to require more compute in a sense, but it will be very efficiently used because you cannot use a bigger model, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, as you mentioned already, and I think you're already doing it, so fine tuning.
Yeah.
So Laura, right? Like
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that as much as possible. Like, but that
Yeah.
again, like with fine tuning, the big problem is you need a data set. So you need to collect the data first,
Yeah.
and then you need to fine tune. So that requires its own compute. For fine tuning, some labs have released like dry labs. So like
Okay.
the concept of dry lab, like you can, so they provide all the compute and everything on the cloud. You can upload your model, and then you can fine tune the model on their service, and then you
Okay.
download it back, and it's fine tuned, and it's much cheaper than running your own setup.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. I would like to add one thing. Like, it's not basically a question. So I saw an article by Grab, the ride-sharing company which operates in Southeast Asia. So what they did was, they actually took, I think, a Quen 2.5 billion parameter model, VLM, and they took the VL part and they actually
Yeah.
infused it with Quen 0.5 billion parameter model. So actually they have like 0.5 and 0.5. They have a 1 billion parameter model. So they were able to shrink down the VLM model a bit. I think they use it for identification and kind of like uploading the, I don't know, like the photo IDs and stuff like that. Yeah. So I found that a bit interesting. So I would just want to add that to this conversation, not that I'm asking a question. So I'm planning to do that as well, something like that. So I have actually a reduced size model, like a 1 billion parameter model that actually does like the check, the image to text extraction and things like that. Yeah. But
Yeah,
thank you
yeah,
very
Uh,
much.
it kind of coincides with what I was saying as well. Like
Yeah, yeah,
when you make the size smaller, it becomes more efficient. And I
yeah.
just remembered something I wanted to tell you, so I'll put it in the chat. So
Right.
you should look into liquid neural networks. I haven't
Okay.
tested or evaluated them, but
Right, right.
apparently they can uh, change their weights based
Okay.
on,
Oh,
yeah. So it's very interesting, and these are very small models.
right, right.
I've heard or read that they can run on a smartphone, but I don't know. I'm not sure. So like
Thank
it's better like if you check it out.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
taking the
Okay.
time.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Saim Salim, for asking so talented questions. It is a true unfortunate that we cannot see you. uh, anyway, we just see some workflows on your
Oh, yeah.
screen.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that.
No
I'll try
problem.
to be
Uh,
present next time.
Bilal
Thanks.
bhai, at this point, we have a rapid fire for you. Uh,
Okay.
we will move into a very quick segment, which is, I mean, I will give you some prompts. So, and you can answer in one or two lines, uh, like as a agent. So let's begin, Bilal bhai. First of all, AI will create more jobs than it destroys. Agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Okay. One skill to learn in the next 6 months.
One skill to learn, prompting.
Prompting. Cool.
Yeah.
Biggest AI myth.
Biggest AI myth that it's super intelligent or even like
Cool.
at a general intelligence level.
Excellent. Excellent. Next one. One tool you personally rely on the most.
So I rely on two, so Claude Code and Codex. Use it
Okay.
together. Yeah.
Cool. Last one. One mistake that beginners should avoid.
Yeah, I think for life and for AI, generative AI, not
Mhm.
providing enough context. That's it. Yeah, just avoid
Excellent.
that.
Thank you so much, Bilal. And before closing, Bilal bhai, before we wrap up, I would also like to invite you to share a few words about Miswaak and our initiative. As you have already seen what we do, so few words for Miswaak.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, and I hope like it can become a source of help for many people and a source of understanding in the future. Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. I wasn't like, yeah, I didn't. This is the first time I'm doing a
Right.
podcast, to be honest. So like, I've done one interview before, but that was it, like many years ago. But yeah, this was nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Bilal bhai. Also, thank you, our audience who joined, who are watching now on Facebook as well. A few promotional that I can't avoid that at Miswak. Miswaak, we are also working on workflow automation solutions. So, and we are currently offering our services free for first two businesses at as for the case study. So, if you're interested, feel free to reach out at hello@miswaakofficial.com. For affiliate mentions, we also have our Amazon Japan affiliate platform. You can explore products directly from our website www.miswaakofficial.com. And for the speaker, if you are someone creating positive impact to the society and would like to share your thoughts, your journey with us, we would love to feature you in our next upcoming session. So please reach out to us at the same email address, hello@miswaakofficial.com. If there is one thing we learned today, I believe AI is not coming. Actually, it's already here. And the real difference is not between AI and humans, it's between those who adapt and those who don't. Bilal Bhai, thank you once again so much for your time and for sharing such valuable insights with us. And to everyone watching, if you found this session helpful, do share with your friends and others who can get benefited from this session. Follow our Miswak for more meaningful conversation like this. Any last word from Bilal Bhai?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I'm very honored to be a part of your conversation. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
So we will now close the call. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.